Hello, and welcome to Cherry Bekaert's GovCon podcast, where we discuss current government contracting trends, compliance matters, and best practices to guide federal contractors forward. I'm Brendan Halloran, Senior Manager with Cherry Bekaert, and with me today is Roy Rushing, a Manager in Cherry Bekaert's Government Contractor Advisory Services Group. As part of our continuing series on Contractor Business Systems, today we'll be talking about navigating business systems, audits, and reviews. Thanks for joining me today, Roy. So I guess the big question is, why are we talking about how to navigate through business systems audits or reviews? And I think that that's probably quite clear that with the goal being to obtain a adequate or approved business system is really critical to doing business with the government. And just to further clarify, as we've talked through each of the business systems, we've talked quite a bit about the two primary agencies that are conducting these. And so, again, you have really two levels of that. One is a more of a functional review. Those are conducted by DCMA, and then you have actual audit programs conducted by DCAA. And so again, just to recap, DCAA has responsibility for accounting, estimating, and MMAS, and DCMA does EVMS, property, and purchasing systems. So, as everyone can imagine, it's definitely a major undertaking, and certainly there is a lot of effort on the part of a contractor as they work through these business system audits or reviews. So not only kind of preparation for them, but through the duration, it definitely will be a focused effort for contractors to be timely with responses, to ensure that they're providing current, accurate, and complete information. And some of the things that that really will help along the way is just having a good routine for preparation, and really following just some kind of standard protocols to really try to avoid findings or deficiencies or issues as a result of the review. So just to kind of get into the process, once you've received notification that an audit or review is planned, what are some of the early steps you should take, Roy?
Well, there's a few. When you have a contract that's going to either be CAS covered or have business system requirements with the clauses, you should know that they're in your contract, and you should be prepared to have a plan that some audits are coming. First thing you should be prepared for is to have an expectation that one, there are going to be requests, there are going to be requests for information, some data calls. And you should be prepared for some walkthroughs with the agency on the data that they're requesting or the data that they've received. The other thing is you're going to want to have a good documented policy and procedure. You want to keep your policies and procedures current because they're going to be looking at those policies and procedures to ensure that they're adherent with the requirements of the DoD business systems. You're going to want to put your best people in front of these auditors. So you're going to have a subject matter expert or your staff that can speak to the individual areas or the data being requested. You don't want to put someone in there that's guessing or looking for the work. You want your functional SME or staff that's going to be there. For instance, your accounting, billing, your estimators, your pricing folks, and then if it's a CPSR, you're going to want your procurement and supply chain folks out there. So there are going to be a lot of requests for information. I would suggest putting together a tracking tool as well, because as these funnel in, of course, DCAA or DCMA is going to have a time frame associated with it, and they're going to want to have several requests, and they're going to want to make sure that they're getting it, and you want to make sure that they're getting the information they're asking for. So also, you want to make sure that your folks, going back to your folks, are well trained or properly trained in the areas that they're discussing. And then once you've had that, gain a clear understanding of the audit or the review program that's being requested. So don't be afraid to ask questions and get feedback from the agency. Any other thoughts or things we should look into leading up to an audit or review, Brendan?
Yeah, no, and you raised some really good points, Roy, particularly around, kind of staffing to support that. You definitely want to have folks who, can really keep things within the scope of the review or audit program, and not get off base or lead the auditor down a path to potentially another area that they want to look at. So really good advice there. But yeah, I mean, some of the things that contractors should keep in mind is that um, in many cases, some of the turnaround timing for requests for information or data calls, some of those can be pretty tight and aggressive on behalf of the government. So definitely, once you've received the notification and once things are underway, you definitely want to be paying very close attention to that. In some cases, things will be requested that are not realistic timeframes to either pull the data. You may have staff who's away on PTO, so really kind of looking at those requests as they come in. If there's going to be any kind of delay to that, flag that right at the onset so that you can potentially ask for or negotiate some additional time if needed. And so they're not always flexible on that, but if it's going to be not practical to meet that, or you would have any concern about providing the data without time to review prior to submitting, definitely try and leverage that. And that really just kind of plays back to monitoring this very closely. One of the other things too is, really the, kind of the additional preparation. So, not that there will always be a significant amount of time before things get started, but for, anticipating, for instance, that you may have initial walkthrough of the system, is to really utilize that time to, plan that out. You'll typically get, what the expectation of, what you would cover as part of an initial walkthrough or a follow-up, and use that to really lay out exactly what you're going to walk, the auditor or reviewer through. And that could be to the extent of even, preparing, a presentation that covers all the steps so that you can actually pull up, screenshots or examples of things that are, you're not kind of, scrambling to pull a record up in the system. So the more that you can, really lay that out, and I'll go so far as to say, kind of do a, a trial run of it and kind of rehearse, what you're going to go through so that it goes smoothly. Obviously there could certainly be questions that come up, during the course of it, but the more that you can keep that, to answering exactly what they need, and planning to be able to get through that, it'll make it certainly efficient during that time frame. Obviously, it's a fair amount of work on behalf of contractors, but from our experience as well, worth it. Another thing to keep in mind too is, Roy, you mentioned really kind of understanding what that audit or review program is. And what it requires. And so one of the things that you want to be on the lookout for is, if a line of questions or requests kind of go outside of what the scope of the audit is for. You certainly want to provide, the data that's needed to do the testing or, perform the review. But you also want to be cognizant that, sometimes they may have requests that kind of go outside of the bounds of that. And so you may want to reel that in a little bit. So, the more kind of the direction of the question, what it's, trying to accomplish and how, the better. And definitely, engaging, depending on, the company size. I mean, senior leadership and management may be, fairly heavily involved. But if not, definitely make sure that they have visibility and are engaged in the process, because, that is, very valuable in terms of, one, getting resources, if any are needed, to either support the review or if you have findings or deficiencies, you really want to have, leadership involved to, make the tools and resources available to correct some of those items. So those are definitely some things to, just be thinking about internally and planning for as you go through. Um, you know, with that, what are some of the typical kind of timing and scheduling considerations with these, Roy?
Well, it depends on which system's being looked at, and then once again, DCAA and DCMA are going to have different timing when it comes to it. But you could expect with DCAA, you're going to see something pretty quick after the award. They can start, and completion date for business system audits can be anywhere from 6 to 12 months, but you can hear from them three months after award, asking for inquiries for documents, or just looking for some walkthroughs on some certain aspects of the business, or systems that they're looking into for accounting. DCMA, they could be a little sooner. They could be and have pre-work assignment and data calls that are coming in. Initially, they're going to come out with RFIs and questionnaires, but ultimately, you should be, as I said before, be prepared to conduct complete walkthroughs and go through the questionnaires and the back and forth of answering. Make sure you're tracking it. Scheduling of a walkthrough could be within weeks for an accounting system. Once again, I said DCA would probably be pretty quick on that one to ask for scheduling of some kind of initial walkthrough, RFI, or questionnaires. So once you get an audit review and it's started, what are some of the pointers to navigate the process there, Brendan?
Yeah, no, and I think we've touched on a couple of them. Obviously, can't reinforce, the preparation and really spending the time and making sure that you can focus on the support. Where you mentioned the kind of the RFI, or request for information tracking, just as an example of, a tool that, a contractor can easily use is, one, obviously you want to know that you're, answering every inquiry that's coming in. It allows you to track your, your due dates. When did you actually respond? And, it definitely is important to provide a level of detail. So if, you have a RFI number one, request for X reports, certainly provide some details so that you can fall back on that if needed, in terms of, here are the, file names or reports or information that was specifically provided for that request. And, the reason that, we're spending a little bit of time on that is, some of the, auditor reviews can go on for an extended period of time. Sometimes there's even turnover on the audit team. And you certainly don't want to, have any be penalized for not, providing information, or, not responding when in fact you did. So, I've found that, contractors who really do monitor that can fall back on that and say, well, no, we actually on such and such date, we did provide, these reports, and it was timely and complete. So again, it really just gives you a record of how that went. It also gives you, an idea of, if there's something that is, flagged as, potential finding or an issue, then you can actually kind of follow exactly, what information or data that was found in. So it really is, a simple but very valuable step. A couple of other, just kind of pointers, is that, if you're getting, a question or a request that's posed, by the auditor or reviewer that you're not really unsure of, or not sure that the data that you can pull as part of a standard report, for instance, is what is needed. Definitely, ask follow-up and clarifying questions. You don't want to just send something back that doesn't meet the mark. Or in some cases worse, is something that's way off base, and may kind of give you some additional audit exposure. So again, as we mentioned before, guiding those meetings and walkthroughs, and that really falls back on, having someone who's, very familiar with the program, can really talk to the functional area, knows what's being provided. So really that experience is important. And then lastly, and again, this is, should probably go without saying, but, really have, make an effort to have good communication and keep good rapport with, with that either functional review team or the audit team. It's not always possible to, to do that easily, but certainly being clear in communication, kind of gaining that, kind of working relationship is really important, not only during the course of the audit or the business system review, but if there are issues detected or findings that are cited, you really want to be able to work with them, because if you have to develop a corrective action plan, they're likely the ones who are going to be reviewing that for adequacy and perhaps doing follow-up review or testing to ensure that it's complete. So to definitely make an effort to keep good communication, keep those lines open, will go a long way during and after the business system review. So again, I think a lot of those go without saying, but definitely reinforced, because I think we've seen where if there's not a great relationship or communication's a little bit choppy, that definitely causes issues. So anyhow, with that, that's quite a few of the areas. But any other thoughts, Roy? That contractors should be aware of as they either are in or perhaps looking to be under review of their business systems.
Yes, there certainly are. But I would like to touch on that, maintaining good communication or rapport. Just recently, I was reading an article from SBA regarding audits, and kind of reminded me back when I was a contracting officer, and I was audited every couple of years or so, and so was my team that I was supervising. And the auditors, and they pointed this out as well. The auditors have a lot of work; they're overworked, and they have a tight schedule. And all they want to do is get through the audit as well. And as long as the contractor can have the information that they're looking for, that is promptly provided and it's sufficient, your audit will go a whole lot better. But what really I thought was key to this is that it's also a human factor in an audit. There are people involved. And, I could tell you in the past when I was a contracting officer and someone was auditing my work, sometimes it could feel personal, something that they didn't like some of the findings that they had found. And one of the responses that I think was just really good advice was, don't take it personally and don't antagonize your auditor. Just, develop that relationship, get them what they need when they need it, and try to just get them to the finish line with the best communication and cooperation that you can. And then once we're talking about just getting through the audit, the effort of getting through an audit or successfully or completing your audit to get an approved system, I mean, this just provides it's extremely valuable because it provides opportunities for the future. Once you have an approved business system, you can go after opportunities that weren't available to you before. So that's just a great check in the block to have. Because it makes it easier for evaluation teams, and they don't have to question your system. I mean, they can automatically see when it was approved. And then once a system is approved, everybody, the work's not done. Unfortunately, or I shouldn't say unfortunately, but there is continued work. You have to stay current and you have to stay compliant. It's not something you can do as a one and done. It's something that has to be maintained. So those of you that are out there that are looking at getting business systems or already have an approved system, make sure that you're constantly keeping your policies and procedures current and that you're ready for the next round. And that's about it. You got anything else, Brendan?
Yeah, no, great, great thoughts there, Roy. I mean, particularly on, the kind of the personal factor there is that, everyone's, trying to accomplish their work and get through the, audit or review, and keeping that, at the front of your mind is definitely important. So, no, great advice. So no, hopefully we've given everyone, some thoughts on, if you have a review or audit that you're preparing for, or anticipating, even in the, somewhat distant future. There's a lot of work that you can be doing to be ready for that when that requirement is in place. So I know one of the, next things we'll talk about in a future podcast is, really, once that audit or review is complete, if there are findings or non-compliances or deficiencies cited, what are some of the steps that you need to work through in terms of, potential corrective actions, and also the determination process on system status. So definitely stay tuned for that in the future. So everybody, thanks for joining us. If you have any questions, feel free to email Roy at roy.rushing@cbh.com, or myself at brendan.halloran@cbh.com. And please join us again for our next podcast.